Happy Valentine's Day. In honor of the day, or really month of love, because I feel like February is like so romantic, I thought I would do some romance book recommendations. The first book I'm going to talk about, I just like recently read, and I think it's starting an obsession. I have Icebreaker by Hannah Grace. This is a hockey romance where she's grumpy and he's the sunshine, so it's kind of like a reverse grumpy sunshine. And overall, like, this takes place in college, and their relationship is just so cute. She's a figure skater and he's a hockey player, and what happens is, like, her partner gets injured and then he sort of fills in for her partner. This book was just so cute, and I got through it really quickly, and I really enjoyed it. And it started sort of my little, I don't want to say obsession yet, because I've only read 2, but this is the first, like, sports/hockey romance I read, and it's the reason I ended up, like, buying and reading this next book. So the next book I have to recommend is The Deal by Elle Kennedy. This is another, like, hockey romance that takes place in college, and I think these series are going to be, like, kind of similar. This is the first book in a series, but the rest of the books haven't come out yet. But she said, like, it says, like, book 1 in the UCMH series, so there's going to be more. And both of these series are going to be, like, companion novels where, like, each book is about a different couple in a friend group. And I'm pretty sure in each book there's a hockey player. But for this one, the, like, little synopsis is that Garrett Graham needs to have, like, high grades in order for him to keep playing hockey in college. And he sees that the main character, Hannah Wells, got a really good grade on her midterm, so he asks her to help tutor. And so that's where, like, their relationship stems from, is just her tutoring. There's fake dating in this because what she gets out of this tutoring thing is that he, like, boosts her popularity, so this guy will end up liking her. And overall, very cute. There's some great tropes in here. Okay, so the next book I'm going to recommend is Archer's Voice by Mia Sheridan. I tabbed this one. This book, I put off reading it for, like, quite a while because it's really hyped up. And I was like, it's definitely not going to live up to the hype. And then it did. So that was great. So in this book, Archer Hale is to die for. Oh my gosh. Oh, I have the biggest crush on Archer Hale. I crushed on both of these boys. So Archer Hale is this sweet man who is sort of alienated from his town because he can't speak and there's some issues that happened in the past. Bree is sort of new to this town, and she wants to get to know Archer because, like, everyone's kind of, like, saying, do they say stay away from Archer or something? Everyone, like, treats him differently, and she sort of just wants to get to know, like, what his deal is, basically. And he is just the sweetest man. Oh my gosh. Yeah, I'm simping for him. I will always simp for him. Okay, so this next book, calling it a romance, like, yes, it's a romance book, but is it? Okay, it's Magnolia Parks by Jessa Hastings. Oh my gosh, this relationship is, like, so toxic, and if you want a, like, cute romance book or something, this isn't what I would go for, but I absolutely loved this, and it was so entertaining. It's a very toxic relationship. Don't think that anything that happens in this book is okay, because it is not. But this is a series, and I really like the writing. A lot of the writing is just very beautiful. But this is the first book in a series. I don't have the rest of the series with me, but I plan on reading it. My next recommendation is A Million Kisses in Your Lifetime by Monica Murphy. Okay, so this book is thick. This is It's a pretty thick book, but I feel like it went by really quickly and I really enjoyed it. I'm one of those people that are like scared of thick books, but I actually really enjoyed it. So this is where this like innocent girl kind of gets with the bad boy. So this is between Crew and Ren. They are like the most popular kids at this prep school, and they're really rich, and it's like this romance that kind of brews between them while they're doing a group project together. Okay, the next book recommendation I have is definitely more of a rom-com. It's Red, White, and Royal Blue by Casey McQuiston. Guys, this book made me actually laugh out loud. It is so funny. It's a romance between the first female president's son and the Prince of England. So it's like kind of forbidden and a little bit of like enemies to lovers. Like they do not like each other at the beginning of this book. And the main guy, Alex, is just so funny. Like this book gave me faith in humanity, and then I was like, oh, it's fiction. Okay, so I'm going to do like the next two books almost together because they're by the same author. I have The Love Hypothesis by Ali Hazelwood and then Love on the Brain by Ali Hazelwood. These books are very similar, but I love them both. So I read this one when I was like first getting into reading, and it was so great. It's this little rom-com where she's a grad student and he's a professor, but like it works out. They're doing fake dating. Basically, she had a little fling going on with this guy, but then she didn't really feel it. I don't know. It went nowhere. And then her best friend likes that guy, and she wants her best friend to be with this guy, but her best friend's like, no, like what? Like you might still have feelings. To convince her best friend that she doesn't have feelings, she kisses the first person she sees, and it happens to be a super grumpy professor, and they fake date, and it is Adam Carlson. Oh, this whole video is gonna be me simping over these book boyfriends. I love Adam Carlson. I want to spoil it right now because there is a trope in here that is like, oh, it's so good. But I can't say what the trope is because then it spoils it. But it's kind of similar to this, which is another like grumpy sunshine, just like this book is. Levi Ward. I'm a big fan of the men Ali Hazelwood writes. He's very grumpy, and then, oh, her name was B. So B is a little cringy at some points. Like, if you're gonna, like, choose between which of these you would read, I would personally pick The Love Hypothesis. She wears galaxy leggings, and for some reason, it's all anyone can remember about this book. I do have to say, like, I tabbed this. The majority of this book, I was eating it up, and then at the very end, the plot kind of goes like, it's like the plot is like, you know, going, and it's like, oh, I'm gonna just like take a complete, that's a right turn. I was gonna say a left turn out of nowhere. Yeah, it just, this is a workplace romance where I think they both like somewhat work for NASA. And they have to, like, work together, but they're, like, again, it's kind of like enemies to lovers almost, where they're, like, workplace enemies, where they can't really stand each other, but then, you know, it's a romance, so. Okay, so the next book I'm going to recommend is not a rom-com. It's, kind of serious. It's Love in Other Words by Christina Lauren. This is the old cover. This book is a second chance romance where the main characters, Macy and Elliot, have like been friends and like they fell in love at like a really young age, and then something terrible happens where and they end up splitting, and then they don't speak for like 10 years, and then all of the sudden they like reconnect, and then it's sort of Are they going to get back together? Can she get back together with him? There's a lot of guessing because of what ends up happening in this book. This book made me cry. And I read it when I was on vacation. Like, this is such a sweet romance, and it's so good. But, it's not a rom-com. If you want, like, more of a rom-com book, this one's not for you. This is a more, like, serious romance, if you will. A rom-com by Christina Lauren that I liked was The Unhoneymooners. I read this a really long time ago, and it's, like, the book that, like, kinda, sorta got me into reading. So I think here it's like, it's a little bit of like enemies to lovers, one bed. There's so many like tropes with this. It's Olive and Ethan. Okay, so Olive's sister and Ethan's brother are getting married. And then everybody at the wedding gets food poisoning except for Olive and Ethan, because they are the only people that did not eat the wedding food. So then Olive and Ethan go on their siblings' honeymoon because it is a non-refundable trip. So those two went in place of their siblings and pretended to be their siblings. And so they basically like had to pretend that they were married while on this honeymoon. And it was pretty good. I do have to say, there's like, this is another book, kind of like Love on the Brain, where like the plot is going one way and then out of nowhere it just like switches again. But I really enjoyed it. I thought it was cute. It's a nice little rom-com-y book. I have two books here. I have It Happened One Summer by Tessa Bailey and Hook, Line, and Sinker, also by Tessa Bailey. These are, these are companion novels. So I'll just say, I think I prefer It Happened One Summer over Hook, Line, and Sinker, but I adored both of these. This is between Piper and Brendan. She is like this super wealthy girl. Apparently this is kind of like Schitt's Creek inspired. I haven't seen Schitt's Creek, but everybody says that's what it's like. She's like super wealthy, has a lot of money, and then he's like this fisherman in a small town. Basically, she gets in a lot of trouble and has to move to his town and kind of prove to her like stepdad that she's not a spoiled brat, I think, and live in this guy's town. And then like, you know, love was in the air. Anyway, this is the second book. It's a companion book, which I guess you don't have to read this one to read this one, but like I would. This is Piper's sister Hannah, and this is Brendan's best friend Fox. He's known to be sort of a player, and she's kind of there. They are seen in this first book a lot, and then this is sort of their own romance. Like, you can tell there's like something going on between them in the first book, but it's like not real. I don't know. He's known as this player that doesn't date, and he's very affected by like this box people put him in, and it's very cute. It happens in the same town as It Happened One Summer. Okay, so this is the Dreamland Billionaires series. They are companion novels, I think. Yeah, that's what you would call them. So we have, the first one is The Fine Print. They have to do things in order to get their inheritance to basically Disney, the company and the land and everything. This is Dreamland, but it's Disney. He's very grumpy. Rowan is very grumpy. And then Zara is like, she's like this sunshine to everybody except for him. She's like low-key mean to just him only, even though like he's her boss. The second book in the series is Terms and Conditions. It is what I'm currently reading, and I just love the writing. I feel like it's very fast-paced, and I'm like eating it up. And this one, it's the oldest brother, Declan. This is the youngest brother, Rowan. he's like even grumpier than Rowan is. And in order for him to become CEO, he has to get married and have kids. So who does he marry? His assistant. Anyway, it's like very fun. And his assistant is best friends with the third brother. This book is so thick. But this is the third brother, Callahan. Okay, so I guess in order to get his inheritance, he has to sell a house. He has to live and sell a house. But, so I haven't read this one yet, but it's a lot of people's favorites. I can already tell you, just from reading the first part of this book, Cal is such a sweetheart. And I know he has like substance abuse issues, and that is mentioned on the back of this book. But he is like such a sweetheart, and I feel like there's a lot of trauma in this book, but we'll see. I haven't read this one yet. But overall, like what I have read in this trilogy, I've really liked it. The writing is really good and fast-paced, and it plays on tropes, but not in like an overwhelming way. It's like very good. But the first two are Grumpy Sunshine, if you like that. And then I think after you read the first two, you just have to read the third, right? That's how that works. Next series I'm going to talk about, I have the first, second, and fourth book here. The third book is At My Dorm. I'm not at my dorm, if you couldn't tell. So I'll show you those. The first book is Twisted Love. Honestly, do I recommend this book? No. I didn't like it. But I loved the second book. It was so good. So, like, maybe endure the first book. A lot of people like this book. Don't get me wrong. Twisted Love by Anna Huang. I started tabbing and gave up. It's more of a, like, a dark romance, per se. Brother's best friend, who, basically there's Ava, whose brother is like very protective of her, and then her brother has to go on a trip, and so then he asks his best friend Alex to look over her, and they don't really get along. He's very much Grumpy Sunshine, enemies to lovers, but I just wasn't the biggest fan of this one. But me being me, I bought the second book before I read the first book, so I was like, well, might as well read the second book, because it's companion novels. So this one is about Ava's friend that just so happens to be a princess and her bodyguard. So that's why I was like, I'm gonna continue with it, even though I didn't really like the first book. I'm gonna read the second book, and then I adored it. It was so good. I'm a big fan of Reese. Yeah, basically, Bridget gets a new bodyguard. His name is Reese, and he's nothing like her previous bodyguards. He's like so grumpy, so protective, really good at his job. And then, you know, it's a romance book, so you know what happens. Anyway, I don't have the third book with me. The third book is Twisted Hate. It's red and has fire. And it's Ava's brother's Josh, and then Ava's other friend, Jules. I hope that I like it. A lot of people really like it. We'll see. Then there's Twisted Lies, which is between Christian and Stella. From what I know about this one, she's a social media influencer, and he owns the building, I think. I don't know. We'll see. I've only read the first two books, but I'm going to recommend you the whole series because I really like the second book, and I plan on reading the third and fourth. If you want to read them with me, we can do that. Okay, so I'm saving these for last. Okay, they're Colleen Hoover books. I know not everybody is the biggest fan of Colleen Hoover, but I personally really like her books, and they're what really, really got me into reading, so I thought it only fit to like share my 2 favorites by her, which are romance books. But if you have, I just want to say, if you haven't read like a Colleen Hoover book, they tend to get dark and have mature themes. But I love them, and I think they're very easy to read things, good like palate cleansers. Anyway, my 2 favorite by her are Ugly Love and November 9. Ugly Love is about Tate and Miles. Tate's brother's like best friend slash neighbor is Miles, and he's a pilot, and like I never like thought like pilots were attractive till I read this, but this is dual POV, but like every even chapter is like a flashback, and it's kind of like poetry almost of Miles's like life before, and so there's some things that aren't necessarily politically correct with it, but I really enjoyed it. I really liked it. This book made me sob. So this, I would recommend to read this after Ugly Love, because there's some characters in Ugly Love that appear in November 9. This book is crazy. It's between Fallon and Ben. Fallon and Ben kind of have this like instant connection almost, but it's not like exactly insta-lovey. Anyway, they have a pretty great connection, but they meet like the day before she's moving across the country. So then they decide, like they make each other promises on how they're gonna like make their lives better, and then they decide they're gonna meet every November 9th. No other day. They have no contact with each other any other day of the year. They only talk and like meet on November 9th. And you know, there's a lot of really mature themes in here, but I really enjoyed it. But I do have to say, this book is the reason I quit a book club. I like joined a book club at school, and then was talking about books with people, and then everyone around me was hating on this book, and that's why I quit. Because like honestly, I understand not liking books, but then they were like going off and being like, I hate Colleen Hoover so much. You can do that, but I feel like they weren't respecting other opinions, and I personally liked this book. So there's a lot of trauma in this book, but I mean, you're always gonna find that in a Colleen Hoover book. Anyway, I hope you enjoyed this video. I'm in such like a romance mood, and I think that maybe just because like everyone around me is like talking about love, and I don't know what that feels like.